Hi everybody, this is Courtney with Fiber Fox Studios, and today we are going to be doing a remastered version of pattern number 1. And in this tutorial you'll be able to work a piece flat. That's what I'm going to show, but I'm also going to provide the instructions so that you can work in the round if that's what you're choosing to do. As an example of two cakes used together, I have paired for this particular sample back here in the round, I've paired the Yarn Bee Sugar Wheel in the color of Candied Orange, and then in Parisian Macaroon. Let me get that around there so you can see. So that's the yarn that I'm using to create those colors that you're seeing right here. It's only one repeat right now, so you just see a little bit of the color transition. So I'll give the instructions on how to work in the round, and then we'll be doing this sample right here flat for those of you who want to work that way. We're remastering it to even out the row end so that you'll have an even row start and end on your projects when you're using these. So I'll be doing a follow-up video to the cake concept. If you haven't seen that video, there'll be a link down in the description for that. But I'll do a follow-up once I get this project a little further along. So we're going to start pattern 1's tutorial now. Link to the pattern in the Etsy shop. The chart set is down in the description along with all the row start times. As always, I appreciate you guys so much for watching, for checking out those descriptions and seeing the project ideas down there, and for supporting the channel by subscribing and giving the videos a thumbs up. It helps me out greatly, so I really appreciate that. But let's get started. Grab your materials. You will need at least 2 colors of yarn to act as a color A and a color B. We'll start chaining in color B, and we're going to jump into that tutorial now. So for today's tutorial, we're going to be using 2 different cakes. So this cake over here will be my color A. This cake right here will be color B. This particular design is a remastered version of this back here. That's pattern number 1. So we're going to be chaining in a different multiple than it was originally taught in so that we can even up the design. So I'm going to use a multiple of 9. And then we'll be adding 3 stitches on to the end. So you're going to chain in multiples of 9 and then add 3 to the end if you're working flat. If you are working in the round, you are just going to chain in the multiple of 9 and then slip stitch to form your ring and begin working the repeat given in the video. So you guys in the round, you're going to focus on the repeat only. Everybody else working flat, you're going to chain in your multiple of 9. Add 3 onto the end. One of those chains is our turning chain, because when we're working flat, we have to do a traditional single crochet in the first and last stitch of the row. So let's get our starting chains ready, and then we'll come back for row 1. So we've worked our starting chain up, and I'm using color B to begin the project because I want color B, in this case, the blue tones and the greens, to be where I have the white right now. So that is why I've chosen color B to begin the actual project. So now we're going to begin row 1 by skipping 1 stitch. So we're going to skip that 1 chain, and we're going to work here into the second doing our traditional single crochet. So this is for those of you working flat. So we just go under that V and then finish out our traditional single crochet. Now the rest of the row, all the way up until we reach the last chain, we are going to work our single crochets working in that back loop only. So all of our single crochets, the remainder of the project when we're working our multiple, are worked by picking up the back loop only and completing a single crochet from there. So we're going to refer to those back loop only single crochets as single crochets throughout. So we're going to complete row 1 by placing our single crochet in each and every stitch, working in that back loop only. So you may pause here and come back when you're ready to start row number 2. I'm going to show the end of row 1 and how you bind off real briefly for those of you who are new. So I'll be back in just a moment to show that. We're now here at the end of row 1. I've placed a single crochet in each and every stitch, working in the back loop only. I now have 1 chain left. So at the end of the row and the beginning of the row, we always go under the V, making sure we're completely in the stitch, and we do our traditional single crochet. That's what's going to help us keep nice, even, straight edges to our project, and it makes it really easy to add on a border. So once we've done our traditional single crochet in the last stitch of the row, that's what we're going to be doing every single row in the very last stitch. We can chain up 2 now and bind off. So I like to clip my yarn and cinch that down. I started with 21 chains, and now at the end of row 1, I now have a total of 20 stitches because that one turning chain is now no longer counted. So you can clip your yarn. We're back for row number 2 now. I'm working now adding on color A. So I'm adding on color A by going here into the very first stitch of the row. We have to make sure we ignore the side bump and don't go into that. That's our turning chain. And we have that turning chain only there on row 1, but you'll see the bumps as you work up. So just make sure you're always going into your first stitch under the V and complete a traditional single crochet in that very first stitch of the row. You can let your tail fall and we'll deal with the tails at the end. So I'm going to go back here into that same first stitch because I chain 1 and then I grab and pull up a loop and then grab and pull through all those little loops that I just have created there. Our repeat for row number 2 is exactly the same as what we have here on row 1. For row number 2, we're going to be working our single crochets all the way down. So working there again, back loop only, all the way down, doing a traditional single crochet in the very last stitch of the row. So you may pause here and we'll meet back up in just a moment for row 3, and that's where our mosaic work is going to begin. Row 3 begins now by joining on with color B this time, doing your traditional single crochet in the very first stitch. Now our repeat for row number 3 begins by doing 4 single crochets over the next 4 stitches. So we're just going to insert there into the next stitch, working in the back loop only. We're going to do 4 single crochets. There's 1. Here's number 2. 3 and 4. We'll do 1 double crochet right here into the next stitch. So to do our double crochet, all we do is identify that next stitch and slide down 2 rows below there, picking up the front loop that we left. And we're going to complete a normal double crochet. So you want to keep loose tension as you pull up that loop. And then you want to complete the rest of your double crochet just like normal. So there's 1 double crochet. Now we're going to end our repeat by doing 4 single crochets over the next 4 stitches. So right here, very next stitch, there's 1, 2, 3, and number 4. That ends our repeat for row 3. So we're going to recap our repeat. Our repeat began over here when we did 4 single crochets, 1 double crochet, and we end with 4 single crochets. So you're going to work on down the rest of your row, starting back over with the 4 single crochets, then double crochet, 4 single crochets until you reach your row end. And then we'll be back for row number 4 in just a moment. So we're here at the end of row 3. As you can see, I've just completed a second repeat and I have 1 stitch left. And this will be the same that you have on your project. Each and every row, you will end up with 1 stitch remaining after you complete your repeat. So in that very last stitch, we know we just do our traditional single crochet going under the V to finish out the row. So that's what you'll be doing on each and every row throughout this pattern. So now we will move on to row number 4. So now we have joined on with color A to complete row 4, and row 4 has a very simple repeat as well. We're actually going to be doing our single crochet down the entire row for row number 4. So you will just be picking up that back loop and put a single crochet in each and every single stitch in color A. So we'll be back in just a moment to move on to row number 5. Row 5 begins now. We've joined on this time with color B, and we begin the repeat for row 5 immediately. And that repeat begins by doing 3 single crochets over the next 3 stitches. So put a little tail in the way. There's 1 single crochet. There's number 2. And number 3. Now we're going to do 1 double crochet right here into the very next stitch. Identify that next stitch. Slide down, picking up that front loop. We will now do 1 single crochet here into the very next stitch, followed by 1 double crochet right here, very next stitch. Now we will end the repeat by doing a total of 3 single crochets over these next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And that ends our repeat for row number 5. So we're going to recap that repeat. Our repeat for row 5 began over here when we did 3 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet, 3 single crochets. So you'll be starting back over, working 3 single crochets next, and follow that same sequence on down the rest of your row. What you're going to find that you're doing is you're working single crochets across through the section, and then doing a double crochet, single crochet, double crochet right there at this previous double crochet to form that little square. So we'll be back in just a moment to move on to row number 6. Row 6 is going to begin now by joining on with color A this time, and we're going to begin the repeat for row 6 immediately. And that repeat begins with doing 4 single crochets over the next 4 stitches. So we're going to start working our single crochets. Here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll now do 1 double crochet into the very next stitch. Let's take a look right here, dropping down, picking up that front loop. There's 1 double crochet. Of course, I'm going to lose all my loops. Now we will end the repeat by doing 4 single crochets over the next 4 stitches. So we just identify that very next stitch. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's recap that repeat. Our repeat began over here when we did 4 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 4 single crochets. So you'll start back over with your 4 single crochets and keep working that same set of stitches on down the rest of your row. And basically, like a cheater method for row number 6 is you're working your single crochets all the way up until you reach that little box that we made, and there in the center of the box is where we're doing our drop down, which I'm about to show you in just one moment. So we've made it. I've just worked a single crochet right here on top of the previous row single or double crochet. So now here in this spot in between those two, that is where we're placing our double crochet. And it's just single crochets when we are not in this spot. And that is pretty much easiest way to remember how to do this row. So you can pause here and we'll be back for row number 7 in just a moment. Row 7 begins now by joining on with color B this time. And we're going to begin our repeat for row 7 immediately. This is what our work is looking like after completing the first 6 rows. So now for row number 7, our repeat begins by doing 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches. So we're going to identify that very next stitch. And we're going to do 1 single crochet. There's 1. And here's number 2. Now we will do 1 double crochet into the very next stitch. So we're going to identify this next stitch, slide down, pick up that front loop. There's 1 double crochet. Now we're going to do 3 single crochets over the next 3 stitches. So here's 1, 2, and 3. We'll now do 1 double crochet right here into the very next stitch. And our repeat is going to end by doing 2 single crochets after I finish fixing my double crochet I lost. So there's the other double crochet. And now we're going to finish the repeat by doing 2 single crochets. There's 1, and here is number 2. And that ends our repeat for row 7. So now we're going to recap that. Our repeat for row 7 began over here when we did 2 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 3 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 2 single crochets. So you'll start your repeat for row 7 back over by doing your 2 single crochets, and then your double crochet, 3 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 2 single crochets to finish out your repeat. So you'll just keep working that same set over and over, and we'll meet back up for row number 8 in just a moment. We'll be forming those little T's. Row 8 begins now by joining on this time with color A. We begin the repeat for row 8 by doing a double crochet right here into the very next stitch. So we're going to identify that next and then slide down, directly down, pick up that front loop. So there's 1 double crochet. We now do 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches. So here's the very next stitch. There's 1 and then 2. We'll now do 3 double crochets into this section right here over the next 3 stitches. So here's number 1, number 2, and number 3. We will now do 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches. There's 1 and 2. And our repeat will end by doing 1 double crochet right here into the next stitch. And this ends our repeat. So we're going to recap our repeat for row 8. Repeat began over here with 1 double crochet, 2 single crochets, 3 double crochets, 2 single crochets, 1 double crochet. So we're going to start our repeat back over working that double crochet, and then follow that same set of stitches on down the rest of your row. We'll be meeting back up in just a moment to move on to row number 9. Row 9 begins now by joining on with color B this time, and we're going to begin our repeat for row 9 immediately with 1 single crochet worked here into the very next stitch. 1 single crochet. Now we're going to do 1 double crochet right there into the very next stitch. Five single crochets over the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We will now do 1 double crochet right there into the very next stitch. And we will end our repeat by doing 1 single crochet right here into the very next stitch. So now let's recap that repeat. Our repeat began over here when we did 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet, 5 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 1 single crochet. So when we start back over, now you can kind of see we're forming a little triangle. We're forming the bottom half of the diamond. So you can kind of see what we're doing here is just a little framework, placing our double crochets right there, just offset from the previous. So when you keep working that same set of stitches, you will see that form over and over on down your row. So we start with our single crochet, 1 double crochet, 5 single crochets. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we do 1 double crochet, and we end the repeat with 1 single crochet. And now I'm going to be finishing off my row, but this is what your work is going to look like when you've completed 2 full repeats of our pattern. Row 10 begins now by joining on with color A, and we're going to begin our repeat for row 10 immediately by doing 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches. So we just identify that very next stitch and we begin doing our single crochets. So there's 1, and here's number 2. Now we're going to do 5 double crochets over the next 5 stitches. So we're right here in the center of that little triangle we're making. There's 1 double crochet, number 2, number 3, oops, number 4, and number 5. Now we're going to do 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches to end out our repeat. There's 1 and 2. So let's recap that repeat. Our repeat began over here when we did 2 single crochets, 5 double crochets, 2 single crochets. So you're going to keep working that same set of stitches on down until you finish out your row, and then we'll be back for row number 11 in just a moment. We are back for row number 11 now. We've joined on this time with color B, and we're going to begin by doing our repeat, or we're going to begin our repeat immediately, I should say. So our repeat this time begins with doing 1 double crochet right here into the very next stitch. Oops. So there's 1 double crochet. Now we do a total of 7 single crochets over the next 7 stitches. Here is number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And our repeat will end by doing 1 double crochet into this very next stitch. So let's recap our repeat. Our repeat began over here when we did 1 double crochet, 7 single crochets, 1 double crochet. So you're just going to start back over doing your double crochet, followed by the 7 single crochets, 1 double crochet, and keep working that same set of stitches all the way down your row. And then we'll meet back up when you're ready to move on to row number 12. We're back for row number 12. We've joined on this time with color A, and our repeat for row 12 begins immediately, and that repeat begins by doing 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches. So we're going to identify the very next stitch and do 1 single crochet, and here is number 2. Now we will do a total of 5 double crochets over the next 5 stitches. Here's 1, number 2, 3, 4, and 5. We will now do 2 single crochets to end our repeat. So we'll identify that very next stitch. There's 1 and 2. So let's recap that repeat. Our repeat began over here when we did 2 of our single crochets, 5 double crochets, 2 single crochets. So you'll just start back over doing your 2 single crochets and then your 5 double crochets, 2 single crochets over and over until you've reached the end of your row. And then we'll be back for row number 13 in just a moment. Row 13 begins now by joining on with color B this time, and our repeat for row 13 begins immediately. This time we're going to begin the repeat by doing a single crochet into the very next stitch. So you're going to identify that next stitch and do 1 single crochet. Now we're going to do 1 double crochet here into the very next stitch. We will now do 5 single crochets over the next 5 stitches. So we'll identify that very next stitch and start doing 1. Here's our second single crochet, 3, number 4, and number 5. We'll now do 1 double crochet into the very next stitch, and 1 single crochet here into the next to end our repeat. So let's recap that repeat. Our repeat began over here when we did 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet, 5 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 1 single crochet. So we'll start our repeat back over doing the 1 single crochet, followed by that double crochet, and 5 single crochets, and keep working that same set of stitches on down the rest of your row. So I'm now up to the 5 single crochets. So I'm working those across that previous set of double crochets. So if single crochets, go straight across that. Number 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we'll do our double crochet and single crochet to end the repeat. There's my double crochet, and now single crochet into the very next stitch. And that ends our repeat. And that's what our work's going to look like after we've completed 2 repeats of the pattern. Row 14 begins now by joining on this time with color A, and our repeat for row 14 starts immediately by doing 1 double crochet into the very next stitch. So identify and work 1 double crochet. We'll now do 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches. There's 1, and here is number 2. Going to do 3 double crochets over these next 3 stitches. So here's 1, number 2, and number 3. We'll now do 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches. Here's 1 and 2. And our repeat will end with 1 double crochet worked right here into the very next stitch. So let's recap that repeat. Our repeat began over here when we did 1 double crochet, 2 single crochets, 3 double crochets, 2 single crochets, and we end with 1 double crochet. So we'll start our repeat back over starting with that double crochet, and then we will keep working in that same set of stitches on down the rest of our row, meeting back up when we're ready for row number 15. Row 15 begins now by joining on with color B this time, and our repeat for row 15 will begin immediately. This is what our work is looking like though. Starting to really see our shapes. So our repeat for row 15 begins by doing 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches. Here's 1, 2. We'll now do 1 double crochet right here into the very next stitch. 3 single crochets over the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. We'll now do 1 double crochet right there into the very next stitch. And we will end our repeat by doing 2 single crochets over the next 2 stitches. Here's 1 and 2. And that ends our repeat. So let's recap that. So our repeat for row 15 began over here when we did 2 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 3 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 2 single crochets. So you'll start back over with your 2 single crochets and keep working that exact same set of stitches over and over on down the rest of your row. We'll be back for row 16 in just a moment. Row 16 begins now by joining on, this time with color A. Our repeat for row 16 begins immediately by doing 4 single crochets over the next 4 stitches. So we're going to identify that very next stitch and we begin doing our single crochets. So we got 1, here's 2, 3, and 4. Now in the very next stitch, we are going to do a double crochet. So if you take a look at where you are there in the center of that diamond and you're doing the very top of it with this 1 double crochet. And then our repeat continues on by doing another 4 single crochets over the next 4 stitches. Here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. That ends our repeat for this row. So row 16's repeat began over here when we did 4 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 4 single crochets. So you're going to start back over doing those 4 single crochets, the center of that diamond doing your 1 double crochet, and then you'll finish up the repeat with 4 more single crochets. So you'll keep working that same set of stitches over and over on down. You are basically just doing your single crochets in between these diamonds. And then when you reach that center point, that's where you're doing your double crochet, if that helps anyone to kind of speed through this row. Pretty simple, finishing up our diamond. So we'll be back in just a moment for row 17. Row 17 begins now by joining on, this time with color B, and we begin the repeat for row 17 immediately with 3 single crochets worked over the next 3 stitches. So we'll just identify and begin working. So there's 1 single crochet. Here's number 2. And here is number 3. We'll now do 1 double crochet here into the very next stitch. Followed by 1 single crochet right there at the top of our peak. And then we will do 1 double crochet right after, very next stitch. And we will end our repeat by doing 3 single crochets over the next 3 stitches. There's 1, 2, and 3. That ends our repeat for row 17. So we're going to recap that repeat. Row 17's repeat began over here with 3 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet, and it ends with 3 single crochets. So you're going to pick back up on the beginning of that repeat doing the 3 single crochets. And you'll notice as you're working this, you're essentially just placing your double crochets framing around this peak that we created on our previous row right there. So you'll just keep working. Then we'll meet back up for row number 18. We're back for row 18, and row 18 is an extremely easy repeat. This is what our work is looking like. And we're going to be doing our single crochets, working in that back loop all the way down this row. So the entire row is made up of single crochets. So you can work row 18 by doing your single crochets all the way around or all the way down. And we'll be back for row number 19. And then we'll be finishing up 19 and 20 are our final rows. So we'll be done with this pattern in just a moment. So keep working on down, single crochet every single stitch, and meet back up with me when you're ready for row number 19. Row 19 begins now, and we're joined on with color B this time. Row 19's repeat begins with 4 single crochets worked over the next 4 stitches. So we'll just find the very next stitch, and we begin 1. I'll do a total of 4. So here's number 2, 3, and 4. We'll now do 1 double crochet into the very next stitch. Followed by 4 single crochets to end the repeat. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's recap that repeat. Our repeat for row 19 began over here when we did 4 single crochets, 1 double crochet, 4 single crochets. So if you take a look at what you're doing, you're finishing up the top of your diamond shape, finishing that peak. So we're going to keep working the same set of stitches on down the row. So that means you'll begin immediately over with your 4 single crochets. So essentially you're going to have a total of 8 single crochets in between those double crochets that you place at the peak. That helps anyone. So we'll be back in just a moment for row 20, and then we'll talk about how you can rewind here in this video and keep moving up for additional repeats of the same pattern. So we'll be back in just a moment for row 20, our final row. So we're back and we're about to do row 20 together, but for those of you who are only using this pattern as 1 full repeat, which is what we've just done here in this video, if you are just doing 1 repeat of this pattern before moving on to another pattern, you do not have to do row 20 unless you need to. And the reason why I say unless you need to is because row 20 is done in color A, and it works a single crochet all the way down, and then we're able to rewind in the video and pick up on row 3 and work rows 3 through 20 as many times as we want to build this pattern up for a larger project. But if you're only doing 1 repeat of it, you would want to end with the same color that you began with. So in this case, if I was just using this for a bag or something, I don't have to do row 20. The rest of us, if we're going to be using this pattern, doing multiple repeats of it to build out a larger project, you will need to do row 20. So row 20, very simple repeat, single crochet in each and every single stitch. For row 20, very easy, back loop only, single crochet. And we'll be doing that all the way down the row in a moment. And then we'll be ready to end the tutorial, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. So here is my project finished, or my swatch finished up with row 20 completed, doing our single crochets all the way down. Now for those of you who want to work this multiple repeats of this design, All you need to do is rewind here in the video back to row 3 and begin working row 3 through row 20 as many times as you want to form your larger project. Or before, if you're just going to use this as a larger section within a project. So hopefully you have enjoyed this tutorial. Down in the description, you're going to find the row start times for your convenience. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to leave me a comment down below. Please make sure that you are subscribed if you are enjoying these tutorials. And until next time, bye for now.